commitment. So please abide by the rules and stipulated times that I'm giving to you. So we're going to start promptly, and we would get people coming in, and unfortunately it's already 5 past. So I'm going to cut things and cut to the chase. Instead of doing the normal routine of individually greeting anyone, I'm going to take Prof. Boydnoist as the one that introduced everyone, and I'm going to say ditto. And then I'm going to say all protocols observed. So I have now complied with the regulated greetings. We can start promptly and get people coming in. And who is talking? Testing during the time of engagement is not right. This is a time. See, I think I'm failing in my duty as the chair, getting feedback, technological. Right. All right, great stuff. All right. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Yeah, I've just been informed that you know, in the beautiful country we live in, we got this thing called load shedding, and it will disturb us for a minute. So when it comes to that at 10 o'clock, bear in mind it's not my call; it's the call of ESCOM. Okay. You know, I've written something down. Let me take this. I don't like talking a lot, but I like chatting a lot. So I've written an old story here, which is going to be in context of what was done yesterday. You know, and I said, no, this is something apt in terms of the actual multilingualism that we are talking about, you know. And this is it's a little saying that says, one language sets you in the corridor for life. 2 languages opens every door along the pathway. But if you do not comply with your own language, then you know nothing at all. So basically, that statement which I just read, it directly impacts on what we are speaking from yesterday and today. So directly we are going to be talking about it, but I'm without further ado, because time is precious to us, and I was told that we must not exceed time limitations. So I'm going to introduce the individual who's going to come to give the welcome address. Mr. Chief, you see, I lost my reading glasses. So yeah, I lost my reading glasses. So I'm reading with the wrong glasses. Mabizela, welcome, welcome, sir, and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. I came before you started to do the introduction. The name was fine, and no more introduction afterwards. Thank you very much, and good morning, colleagues. Morning, Chairperson, Vice-Chancellor, Prof. Jobeka, and in absentia, of course, our host, Prof. Nana Poku, and yesterday, Prof. Mkize. And the CEO and other CEOs of the entities. I saw CEO of Pansal. I think Sadila has got a CEO. The DVCs who are present, deans of faculties, heads of departments, our guest speakers, and distinguished guests. Ladies and gentlemen, now all others who come after me, then they will be allowed to say protocol observed, because I've done the greeting for them. Mine is to welcome you to today, the second day of our colloquium, or the Vice-Chancellors colloquium. I'm saying our because I was also part of the organizing committee. Just to remind you, colleagues, the theme that we are gathered here on this colloquium is the intersection of policy and practice. and best practice on the implementation of language policy in higher education and monitoring and evaluation. Lest we forget, in fact, that's the reason why I thought, let me just remind you. And of course, we're going through sub-themes, each of the sessions that we have had and the sessions we are going to be having today are under sub-themes. So we focused on towards best practices and progress being made yesterday. And then also yesterday, funding and resource sharing models. Today, we are going to be focusing on models for capacity development and also planning for impact monitoring and evaluation. So I'm not going to be taking you through what we did yesterday and what we achieved. At least we had a good summary towards the end of yesterday's session. Personally, with mine, people are still making mistakes. As much as I'm in the organizing committee, I'm coming from USAF. So sometimes there could be a mistake when people see me here, and those who didn't know that I've long left the Department of Higher Education and Training. But for me, this has been a journey that started with the Department of Higher Education and Training. And I can even pin it to a year, that was 2020, when we started to focus on the language policy. And it started with what was called a round table, which was not round at all. And that meeting ended up a bit chaotic. I will tell you that. And then I will move to 2023. That was from 2010 and then to 2023. Firstly, though, when the language policy was published in 2020, and the Vice-Chancellors then decided that they will have this series of 3 colloquia, starting with one at Stellenbosch in 2021, 2022, then at the University of Pretoria, and then this year at University of KwaZulu-Natal. I think the language specialists among us probably are starting to feel withdrawal symptoms, because now this is the last one. So what do we do next? I'm sure, though, that they are, since they are having their own structures, their own organizations, certainly they are going to be figuring something out, especially coming out of all these 3 colloquia, because they are coming up with work to take forward. So just before I sit, in terms of anticipation from yesterday already, we could pick up issues that need to be taken forward, either at our individual institutions or in our organizations, or again, as these structures that are one of them being PANSALP, that has helped being part of organization of these colloquia. For fear of being fired, I cannot recognize Prof. Andrew Crouch, who's just come in. Welcome, VC. So just on some of the things that we have picked up already, which I think there has been a recognition already yesterday that they need to be taken forward. Pity that the Department of Higher Education is not represented here, but the issue of collaboration or partnership was a running theme yesterday, even though not necessarily from the theme itself of the colloquium, but from the presentations that came up. We need to be looking at that when we leave. The issue of shared resources or shared services, together with Stronger, or, one, I think Prof. Kumalo said yesterday the amount that is coming out from the project that is led by the department together with UWC may be small when it comes to individual institutions, but if we pull it together, then it is going to be significant. That was the spirit. And of course, the sharing regionally in terms of either in the partnerships, but also in terms of sharing of resources. Of course, we've got to look at it also at national level, especially with the communities of practice. The SADILA study, and I'm sure all of us would want to go and study their recommendations, because some of their recommendations have got a huge implication at institutional level. And finally, the other considerations structurally. For instance, there was a suggestion that we include a focus on deaf language or sign language, not on deaf community. And even at institutional level. So by that, colleagues, somewhat of a summary, but even though I didn't really want to do a summary, but to get you back to today, and in terms of what we would want to achieve out of these 2 days. So this is the beginning of the last of the 3 series, or the series of 3, the beginning of that today, that thereafter, therefore, we will be having to look at what we need to be doing in our individual structures when we live here. So I want to say, first of all, thank you very much to the experts that are here, because it's a learning curve for many of us. We may think that we speak languages, but we are not speaking the languages from a point of knowing. Far much better than we do, even though we may say we own the languages. And then secondly, yes, to have today again, looking forward to a very fruitful day. And of course, from what you are giving us as homework henceforth. So I hope I didn't overstay my welcome here, but I declare it opened for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that opening address and welcome. I'd like to share a little experience before I introduce our keynote address for today. I've been engaged with a online class together with one of my colleagues, and the online class involved people from Slovakia, from Russia, and so forth, and they want to learn English. And the mode of deliverance was English. But something surprising is that when you go to your breakout rooms, they revert back to their mother languages, because they have a better understanding when they speak the mother languages. So when they get back to the normal, they come back and they discuss it quite openly, and they with a better understanding than before. So this engagement today and yesterday brings out this very requirement that we need to show that we need to do something here, because the indigenous languages can assist in better understanding of the course content at universities. So that's what we're looking at. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Professor Bismarck Toyabeka, who is the principal and vice-chancellor of the Northwest University in South Africa. It's claimed to be the 3rd largest university, but let's leave it at that. I know he puts it in his resume, but let's leave it at that. And he has got numerous accolades. I mean, you can look at the little the citation at the back of your program. It gives you a lot of things that the prof has done. So it shows that he is quite formidable in his field, and he knows what he's talking about. So he's going to engage with us in terms of multilingualism, and he's going to take us to his journey and give us some insight into it. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Program Director, for the kind introduction. I think we must look at the HEMIS data and confirm which one is the third largest university. Then the whole discussion is laid to rest. CEO of USAF, Dr. Matutu, and the Vice-Chancellors that are present here today, our host, Professor Poku, Professor Mkize, the USAF senior staff members, Mr. Mabizela, language experts from different universities. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Dumelang. Sanbonan. Molweni. Not so many, there's no variety here. So I'll leave it at that. Abushin. Right. You know, being invited to speak at a gathering of language experts, and you are a nuclear engineer like myself, is intimidating. But then again, as I listened to the opening remarks by the program director, I was reminded that, in fact, I have interesting stories from the nuclear field that reflects on the importance of language. Now, those of you who may or may not know, one of the nuclear power plants that has been built for a very long time is in Finland. It's called the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant. And it has been over time and over budget, many folds. I cannot tell you when it was supposed to be completed, but it was finally completed and brought to operation last year. When we go through all the lessons learned that led to the failure of that project, because more or less it's a failure, way over budget. One of the foremost factors, believe it or not, it's not engineering, it's not legislation, maybe, but it's one important thing, the cultural differences, language being one of them. So Finland is a very small country in the Scandinavia. And so to build this nuclear power plant, they had to gather a lot of experts across Europe, Middle East, South Africa, and the UK, and the US. But unfortunately, most of the suppliers are in Europe and in Eastern Europe. And so the nuances in what is meant by certain specifications lies in the understanding of the language. And so some of the biggest mistakes that were done there was supplying the wrong concrete. You know, concrete, the one that you use to build. Now for nuclear power plants, we use a different kind of concrete. But the devil lies in the specification. And that was written in Finnish. And the suppliers were from the Czech Republic. And that caused a lot of problems. And therefore they had to accept, start mixing the concrete, building it, starting to do the civil works. And after months of progress, they had to dismantle because the inspectors came and said, this is wrong concrete. They said, no, but this is, they said, no. This is wrong concrete. And ultimately it was understood there was a problem with the language. Now that permeated across a number of redos, reworks in that power plant because of language and cultural differences. Now we can talk a long day about cultural differences themselves. But colleagues, I am asked today to speak on multilingualism as a transformative resource, moving from policy to practice. I must immediately accredit this speech to the Language Directorate of the Northwest University and the School of Languages, whose experts are here. And therefore, if you have very technical, non-policy questions, they will respond to those. But fortunately for me, when the Northwest University approved the functional multilingual policy in 2017, I happened to be the chairman of council. And I remember the night when that policy was, the night preceding the approval of the council meeting to approve the policy, was a difficult night because we had to trade horses, so to speak, to ensure that everybody was on board. So multilingualism for the Northwest University, it's a very, very, very important and touchy topic. But the interesting thing is that the Vice-Chancellor himself, that is me, believe quite strongly in multilingualism. I always tell my own children that, again, in line with the opening remarks, understanding one language is just the beginning of you finding your way. But you will never lose anything from speaking more than one language. In fact, you have so much to gain. And they say, no, but you mean we must also speak Afrikaans? I say, of course. And I'm with Afrikaans, Prat. Why not? It's one of the oldest languages in this country. And those of you who cared to read my inauguration speech on the 26th of August last year, I also made it clear that no language will be given preference at the expense of other languages. And I also went on to say that there was no reason why we must castigate our indigenous languages, Afrikaans being one of them. I am on record saying that. In fact, I believe we need to add more resources to our indigenous languages that are still underdeveloped and use Afrikaans as a benchmark, because Afrikaans is homegrown. It is a very, very good example of how you can resource and enrich and develop a language. Use it as a benchmark so that we bring Setswana, isiZulu, and Sesotho, which are our languages in that part of the world, on par with Afrikaans. So that is where my stance is. But colleagues, language is very critical to facilitate knowledge communication during the learning process at any age. As the program director said, for a child who speaks one language, knowing that one language system well from an early age helps that child to learn another language with relative ease at a later stage. For bi- and multilingual learners, knowing two languages or more well from an early age and using those languages for literacy and numeracy learning develops awareness of languages as systems of thinking in the way that numbers are systems of counting, capable of yielding infinite variety and insight. The research on the advantages of multilingualism is compelling. And based on this body of research, government has come to support and enhance the place of home language education in the curriculum from the early years right into higher education. In the past 3 years, as Mr. Mabizela has said, it has made African languages, that is government, has made African languages a mandatory feature of learning in higher education. The arguments for language learning are not restricted only to cognitive development. Rather, languages have the ability to promote social cohesion and contribute to social transformation in many, many ways. Languages remain a barrier to access and success for many students at South African higher education institutions. As a result, higher education institutions are faced with the challenge of ensuring the development of a multilingual environment in which all official South African languages, particularly those that have been historically disadvantaged or marginalized, are given space to develop as languages of scholarship, research, teaching and learning, and so on. It is time for all South African universities to embrace the spirit of change in language matters as advocated by the language policy framework of public higher education institutions. We all agree that the essence of the language policy framework is to promote multilingualism and the development of the formerly marginalized languages of South Africa. You should be careful not to do this at the expense of the already developed languages. Now, I have said that already. It is encouraging to realize that most universities embrace this spirit of change in our language policies. The differences between our universities now is how much we have progressed. How far have we gone with this endeavor? Through collaboration and interaction between our universities, through our different language departments and programs and projects, we have demonstrated our progress to each other. We have exchanged approaches and strategies to determine how to reach our language goals. However, we have not reached our destination yet. Our journey has just begun. More than ever before, we need to work together to achieve our intended language goals. Different milestones that we have reached in our various institutions need to be unselfishly shared and distributed amongst ourselves. I will use our Northwest University language practices and policy as examples of how, from a small beginning, the wheel of change can be set in motion in language matters, and how this can lead to linguistic transformation. Our university has a long tradition of inclusivity, diversity, and the ethic of care. We continue to believe that these characteristics are essential to the pursuit of academic success and access. And as such, they require our ongoing attention, support, and resourcing. We've also embraced multilingualism to improve our academic and non-academic offerings and achieve educational sustainability. We must continue to harness the experiences and the potential that all our staff and students bring to the Northwest University, and therefore our language policy implementation annual report of 2022 gives quite a number of compelling evidence of how this has been achieved. We decided to implement and inclusive language policy in 2018. A large portion of the groundwork for the planned 2019 launch of the Northwest University Language Policy was completed years ending in 2022. Implementation started in 2020 with the first language-related action of the year being the successful language awareness workshops for the first year per faculty on each campus. Despite the challenges associated with COVID-19, the university faculties moved with their planned initiatives for that year into the online environment. We were one of the 11 universities in South Africa that could seamlessly make that transition, arising partly from our long experience with distance programs and a learner management system, the LMS, used across our campuses for contact and distance education. In the language directorate and classroom environment, we supported for close to 2 decades simultaneous interpreting in classrooms using technology for interpreters. While many of the interpreters are skilled language practitioners employed by the university for either in-person interpretation or translational work, their particular disciplines could be trained with interpreting skills using the headset technologies for the classrooms. Suddenly, without conventional contact classes, the approach to interpretation in the classroom setting and also for staff development and support and student support had to shift because of COVID. So COVID-19 compelled a reconsideration of the role of technology and its possibilities for supporting the university's commitment to multilingualism. Thus, short learning programs designed for staff to become aware of translanguaging pedagogies and to be redesigned expeditiously, had to be redesigned expeditiously for online offering and participation. Zoom, Teams, and other programs using AI had to be explored as a matter of urgency, not only to maintain the momentum built as a result of all the faculty, as well as the support department planning in 2019, but also because the technology could not be seen as a barrier to the successful offering of multilingual support for our students by staff. Where in-person contact had been the norm, using technology provided to be an adequate proxy for support where interpreting was undertaken either via Zoom, simultaneously via the choice of the already recorded classes, or by text translation of speech using the facilities that were developed rapidly in both the Teams and the Zoom environment. This succeeded in raising these students' awareness of Northwest University's commitment to multilingualism and informing them of the intended implementation of the university's language policy from 2020 through their individual faculties' language plans and what these plans entailed. During the same year, the faculties also started implementing their language plans, and short learning programs were started, for example, in Setswana acquisition and multilingual pedagogies. Now, what about the review of our language policy? We considered that possibilities of the extension of staff and student support notwithstanding, the university also became aware of its system's limitations, which could not have come so starkly to the fore had COVID-19 not occurred. For example, while it was possible to make use of technology in more savvy and more purposeful ways, the booking, scheduling, quality assurance, monitoring and evaluation of the instances in which technology was being used, how frequently and by whom, where and under what conditions, or in terms of which requirements, required systems which were also online and accessible, in which minimize manual processes. The monitoring and evaluating of the implementation plans such that impact could be measured in terms of experience, which could be recorded, reported, and reflected, has been an ongoing need. The period of the COVID-19 pandemic also coincided with the period in which our language policy had to be reviewed by the Northwest University Council. As suggested earlier, the conditions under which this review occurred were quite challenging, but they also posed challenges that would not have worked had we not thought outside the box. During the 2021-2022 language policy review process, we discovered that much work still had to be done to advance social justice, diversity, and inclusion, and to ensure that our multilingual policy was fully institutionalized and implemented in all relevant contexts. African languages are essential tools for graduates to enter the workforce and are a diverse aspect of our academic community. Our review's main goal was to ensure that our policy encourages greater implementation amongst the university community, faculty, support services, and student life. The review allowed us to perform a language audit, which gave us an overview of the language spread on all campuses. A total of 4,600 participants participated in the audit. And in our Mafikeng campus, 609 undergraduates participated in the audit. In Potchefstroom campus, we had 2,000, and in Vanderbijl Park, about 420 students participated. Postgraduate students also participated in the survey. 25 honors students from Mahikeng, 184 from the Potchefstroom campus, and 24 from Vanderbijl campus participated. The audit allowed us to have a focused, phased approach to implementing our language policy. The review also made us realize that we needed to look back and assess our implementation strategies. A successful revision of the language policy and the Council's endorsement further demonstrated our intention to assist all Northwest University departments and faculties in advancing multilingualism. Thank you. Our language policy is educationally sound, and it sheds light on the university's dedication to developing multilingualism in general. And teaching and learning programs are fully part of it. To ensure that the Northwest University becomes as clear and as practical as possible, our language policy development and implementation strategies are driven by our language directorate. This support service division provides various language services to the university. It also provides services for language planning, translation, interpretation, language editing, language advice, and a language ombudsperson function. The directorate also conducts research relevant to any of its language activities. It plays a critical role in ensuring that appropriate support and advice are provided to other support functions and the teaching and learning, student life environments to ensure that we implement our language policy effectively. We ensured that we focused on the following deliverables after the review of the language policy. One, making our language services flexible and allowing them to be used from in-person to on-screen interactions. Secondly, making our resources available in an online as well as physical multilingual context of the Northwest University. Thirdly, adapting the approaches that intellectualizes indigenous languages to approaches focused on delivery, and adding more resources to promote and develop Sesotho and Setswana. Lastly, revision of our faculty language plans to ensure that faculties do more in implementing our overarching policy across the faculties. So to that effect, we developed working relationships between the Directorate and the School of Languages, as well as the Faculty of Education. And as I said, they are all here today. We also developed language portraits to facilitate language awareness amongst the university community. We ensured that even in the hybrid mode of operation, we actively develop and enhance indigenous languages as languages of significant scholarly discourse and sources of information in the many disciplines of higher education using technology. But we cannot continue without monitoring and evaluating the successes of all these endeavors. So therefore, the strategic initiative to create opportunities for multilingualism across faculties and disciplines was initially planned as a 3-year pilot project from 2020 to 2022, which then required a monitoring and evaluation function. This function is in the Language Directorate and is vital for overseeing and supporting the implementation of faculty language plans. The language planning, monitoring, and evaluation function of the Northwest University Language Directorate is tasked with supporting and monitoring the implementation of multilingualism for learning and teaching at our university. This includes providing training for lecturers, multilingual pedagogies, and supporting faculties with the implementation of the language plans. It also provides research on the whole process and across faculty and faculty members. The quarterly reports that are produced from this process in terms of monitoring and evaluation are sent to the Senate Committee on Language Planning and Advisory Services. Monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the language policy by faculties and support units is done frequently. Therefore, schools, faculties are asked to report on the initiatives completed and the progress every quarter. This is done through surveys and questionnaires. These results are then reported as received and compiled into a summary report at the end of each semester. This is done with the help of our faculty task teams. Obviously, these reports find their way to the University Council. So, colleagues, in conclusion, through our multilingual policy and plans, our university is working to ensure that indigenous languages, African languages, are used as resources for teaching and learning. This commitment is evident in the language progress, progress in teaching and learning, and in the student life activities. The Language Directorate, as I said, facilitates linguistic progress in the university, ensuring adequate language resources to cater to these language needs. The intention of the Northwest University to be a unitary institution has been demonstrated through its functional multilingual language policy. There has been significant progress in the Northwest University language policy and its implementation by faculties in the form of their language plans. However, much work still needs to be done, especially in incorporating African languages into teaching, learning, and research. I'm sure all of you would agree with me. The work done by the faculties continue to contribute to the use and enrichment of the academic discourse in African languages, especially regarding the development of the glossary, concept videos with voiceovers and subtitling. However, what needs to be done, what needs to be strengthened for the future is the intentional and consistent use of these languages as they manifest through the students' linguistic repertoires. In this way, the university will accelerate its progress towards becoming a functional multilingual institution. The success of our language policy depends on the amount of institutional and technical support it receives for its implementation. And secondly, on the evidence of the buy-in from end users, that is our staff and students. Through the array of interventions to support staff, though the array of interventions to support staff is well documented, we must also recognize that student involvement in everything is quite essential. Thus, an integrated approach to multilingualism inside and outside the classroom, in residencies and in student life is very critical. There has to be a consistent drive to create greater awareness and sensitivity towards languages and to embrace them as part of our diversity on the sports field, in the laboratories, and to embrace them as part of our, on the sports field and in the laboratories. Awareness is a word I deliberately use in my closing remarks. Awareness not only of the potential of language to support language, but also of the potential of language to create belonging and growth. This is part of the journey for our sector, and we do not seek to replicate past errors by excluding the most essential element in effective learning. That is language from the experience of learning itself. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you, Prof, for sharing what your institution is doing. And I've called and I've seen that you've got policies development, you've got resource available for your implementations. You also speak about linguistic preservations, and also you speak about the collaboration, partnership, and development within the institution and maybe outside the institution as well. On that note, we will delve a little later on that. The next individual we have, I need to take out my little tool here, which is called the implementation. I'm not going to MS Teams as you probably want me to. I'm just going to use it as a mode of reading. The next individual is going to speak to us on towards the transformative student experience language policy implementation strategies and initiative to promote inclusive and enhanced success of Stellenbosch University. I need to read a little citation of this individual because she came all the way from Stellenbosch University, and she is major flying down, carrying a luggage, and she didn't have a place to stay, so she's still got a luggage with her. Let me find a citation. It's somewhere around, amongst all his papers, it's difficult to find that sometimes. And I know Prof had it stapled. I don't have it stapled. I've got it all cluttered up. And no, technology has brought me on the other hand. Right. I found it. The speaker is for Dr. Annette van der Merwe, and she's a senior director division for teaching, learning and teaching. We call it an MUT, teaching and learning. So it's learning and teaching environment at Stellenbosch University. Again, I'm not going to read the entire citation as much as I took it out. It's all in that little booklet that you'll have, which you can download. Now, Dr. van Merwe, over to you.
Just going to wait till they just started up here quickly. My presentation. Thank you very much. Perfect, thank you. You have to share first. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. And just a note of correction, I just have my luggage with me because I'm going to the airport at 12. I actually did have a place to stay last night as well. Thank you, Session Chair. But next time I'll remember, I've got a place to stay here. So colleagues, all protocol observed. It's wonderful to be here today and to share with you some of our implementation plans at Stellenbosch University. I also want to acknowledge two of my colleagues in the room, Prof. Mbulu Madiba, as well as Dr. Kim Walmach, Director of our Language Center. And I think Professor Madiba needs no introduction in this room either. So I first of all also wanted to introduce them and also acknowledge them in the room today. I also want to acknowledge, as the previous speaker said, that we are on a journey. I don't want to present today as if we've got everything pat at Stellenbosch University. I do think this whole multilingualism is a journey that we're all embarking on, and I also want to encourage collaboration as I'm speaking today. So I'm also speaking today on behalf of Professor Dinesh Ramjiganath, our Deputy Vice-Chancellor. He's the owner of our language policy. I'm the curator as Senior Director, Learning, Teaching, Enhancement. And it's also my privilege that the Center for Teaching and Learning, Center for Learning Technologies, Language Center, Academic Planning, Quality Assurance, and Hybrid Learning are all within my division. So it's quite a big division, everything to do with teaching, learning, assessment, but I'm very proud that the Language Center is also within my division. So it's with that hat, my language policy hat, that I'm talking to you today. So yes, so I've really chosen this title with an emphasis on inclusivity and enhancing success. And as I progress through my presentation, you'll see I've taken a little bit of a different tact to some of the previous presenters yesterday. But let me start with a start, and that's our language policy. So our 2016 policy was up for review in 2020, just as the new language policy framework was being defined. And on the screen, you'll see our whole timeline, as we started with a highly representative task team, and of course moved it through all the consultation phases up to its adoption by Senate and Council. Both of them have to agree on our language policy in December 2021. So it was quite a lengthy process from October 2020, lots of consultations, lots of engagements on campus, and of course, alignment with a new national language policy framework. We were really opportune that was exactly the time that we started the revision of our language policy. So we could align it at that stage also with the language policy, new language policy framework. So having said that, of course, the implementation, I want to highlight one of our main role players, and it was mentioned by the previous speaker as well, around all of these academic professional literacies, multilingual learning, communication, writing and reading labs, interpreting service, language service is done by our Language Center. And as I mentioned, Dr. Walmach is here today as well. And you can see there's quite a number of activities already happening on campus, and of course also endorsed and also supported by our language policy. In terms of academic literacies, preparing students to communicate at university and beyond, quite a number of faculties, the science faculty, engineering faculty, theology, faculty of medicine, health sciences, really incorporating language as part of their curriculum. In terms of going to the left, the writing and the reading labs, academic reading and writing support, consultations, workshops, But even there as well, specifically between the reading lab and say our faculty of science, in terms of science in context, getting that closer collaboration between the language center and our faculties. Interpreting services as the University of the Northwest, we also have, I think we poached some of your interpreters originally, but anyway, we've also got a very active interpreting services in 4 languages, Afrikaans, English, isiXhosa, but also South African Sign Language. And of course, during COVID, podcasting, translations, and using technology, as you already alluded to as well. Language service, a few thousand documents, translation, editing, transcriptions, of course, also terminology development that was alluded to yesterday. So those are all the activities that we are active in as well. In terms of communication at the bottom, IEP, EAP, TEFL, corporate communication courses that are also made fit for purpose for specific environments, as well as the corporate sector as well. And then last but not least, the one that I actually want to speak more on today is the promotion of multilingualism in social and academic spaces. Because I think the previous speaker also alluded to it right at the end in the conclusion as well. And I think when we speak about multilingualism, we can speak about all of these activities and we can have perfect policies in place. But if we don't get buy-in and actually shifting the staff and the students' mindsets around what multilingualism could actually add in terms of the sense of belonging, sense of inclusivity, I really think it's just words on a piece of paper. So that's what I wanted to also spend a little bit more time on today, and the progress and the journey that we're on at Stellenbosch University. So in our language policy, and this is what I want to emphasize today, is that although the Language Center is playing a key pivotal role in the promotion of multilingualism, we explicitly state in our language policy that it's not just their responsibility, but that all of us at the university are co-responsible for the advancement of individual and institutional multilingualism. It's the language department,